The elderly woman clutched her cloth bag a little tighter, her heart sinking as she watched her modest groceries teeter on the edge of disaster. In that split second, she truly believed she was about to lose everything she had carefully purchased for her simple evening meal. Never in her 70 years of quiet resilience did she imagine that this ordinary stumble in a crowded Kowloon market would forever change the fate of the most feared man in the district. Decades later, that single evening would still echo through the narrow alleys like a living legend. Shopkeepers would lean forward across their wooden counters, eyes sparkling with excitement, as they retold the tale to captivated customers. Elderly men would gather in the steamy warmth of traditional tea houses, passing the story from one wrinkled hand to another like a sacred inheritance. Young martial artists, their muscles burning during intense training sessions, would repeat it with hushed reverence in dimly lit dojos, treating it as both inspiration and warning. It wasn't remembered as the greatest fight ever witnessed. No, its power lay deeper. It was the day pure, suffocating fear finally met a man who refused to lower his head before it, and that man was Bruce Lee. Before Bruce Lee entered the story, another name ruled the streets with an iron grip, Chen Wei. If fear could walk on two legs and breathe the humid Hong Kong air, it would have chosen Chen Wei's face without hesitation. At only 28 years old, he had become the undisputed king of intimidation in his corner of Kowloon. No one had elected him, no one genuinely respected him, but every single soul in the district feared him, and for Chen Wei, that fear was sweeter than any crown or fortune. The narrow, labyrinthine streets of Kowloon truly belonged to the hard-working people who kept the city alive. Fishmongers rose long before sunrise, their hands raw from handling icy, silver-scaled catches under flickering bulbs. Laborers bent their backs under endless loads until every muscle screamed in protest. Street vendors stood motionless in the blistering summer heat for 12, sometimes 14 hours a day, shouting their wares until their voices grew hoarse, all to earn enough for one decent family meal. These were people of quiet dignity, carving survival out of concrete and chaos. Yet despite their daily struggles against poverty and exhaustion, there was one shadow that haunted them more than empty pockets or unpaid bills. The sudden, unwanted encounter with Chen Wei. He was no mere bully. Chen Wei possessed genuine skill as a karate fighter. No one could deny his talent. He had dominated regional tournaments, left challengers broken on the mats, shattered wooden boards with thunderous kicks, cracked ribs with precise strikes, and destroyed dreams with cold indifference. But somewhere along the path to victory, success had twisted into something toxic inside him. The stronger his body became, the more he craved the sight of weakness in others. The more victories he collected, the less he valued simple human kindness. Over time, the people stopped viewing him as a martial artist. Instead, they saw him as a human storm, one that could strike at any moment, unpredictable and merciless, reveling in the destruction it left behind. That particular July evening, the heavy tropical heat still clung stubbornly to the city like a second skin. A brief afternoon rain had left the streets glistening under the dying light, reflecting the awakening glow of neon signs like shattered mirrors. Steam rose in lazy spirals from busy food stalls, carrying the irresistible aroma of sizzling street delicacies. Colorful neon boards flickered to life above the crowded sidewalks, bathing the district in vibrant reds, blues, and greens. The air buzzed with the ordinary energy of daily life. Vendors haggling, children laughing, workers heading home with tired steps. It was just another ordinary evening for most. But for Chen Wei, it was perfect. He loved this time of day. The streets were full. Hundreds of potential witnesses filled the market. His reputation felt strongest when eyes were watching. He walked with deliberate arrogance, chest pushed forward, powerful hands wrapped tightly in white fighting tape that signaled constant readiness. Two young students followed closely behind him like loyal shadows. They worshipped the ground he walked on. To them, Chen Wei was far more than a fighter. He was a living legend in the flesh. Every boast he made sounded like ancient wisdom. Every insult carried the weight of confidence. Every act of arrogance appeared as undeniable strength. They had not yet learned the dark difference between true power and the mask of tyranny. As Chen Wei moved through the bustling market, people parted around him instinctively. Not in obvious panic, not with dramatic gestures, just enough to avoid trouble. A mother pulled her child closer. A vendor lowered his voice mid-sentence. An old man stepped aside without making eye contact. Chen Wei noticed every single movement. Each averted gaze fed his ego. A thin, predatory smile played on his lips. Power had long become an addiction for him, and like any addiction, it constantly demanded more. More attention, more control, more visible proof, more fear. Without realizing it, he had transformed into a man who actively hunted for opportunities to remind everyone exactly who he was. Fate, it seemed, had been listening, and it was about to hand him one. Near the far end of the market stood an elderly woman named Madame Li. She was small and thin, her silver hair tied neatly behind her head in a simple bun. Time had gently bent her back, but it had never managed to break her quiet, unbreakable spirit. She carried a well-worn cloth bag containing fresh vegetables, packets of dried shrimp, and a beloved metal thermos she had owned for nearly 15 years, a faithful companion through countless mornings. After purchasing the last items she needed, she began her slow, careful walk home. At that exact same moment, Chen Wei rounded a corner without paying attention. Neither saw the other coming. Their shoulders collided in what should have been a minor, everyday accident, the kind that happens thousands of times in a crowded city like Hong Kong and is usually resolved with a quick, polite apology between decent people. Madame Li stumbled. Her bag slipped from her hands. Vegetables scattered across the wet pavement in a colorful mess. The metal thermos rolled away noisily. Several bright oranges bounced and tumbled through the street. The old woman nearly lost her balance and fell. A nearby vendor instinctively stepped forward to help, compassion flashing across his face. Then he saw who had caused the collision, and froze in place. The entire market suddenly grew deathly quiet. The usual chatter died away. Everyone knew exactly what might happen next. Madame Li looked up at the towering figure, her voice polite, respectful, and gentle. "Oh, I'm sorry." Chen Wei looked down at her, then at the scattered groceries, and finally at the crowd of watchful eyes around them. Something ugly and dark awakened deep inside him. An audience. He finally had an audience. The corner of his mouth slowly lifted into a cruel smile. Then he laughed out loud, not because anything was genuinely funny, but because the chance to humiliate someone in public entertained him greatly. "Old woman," he declared loudly, his voice carrying across the stalls. "You should learn how to walk properly." A few people lowered their eyes in discomfort. Others pretended not to listen. No one wanted to get involved. Madame Li remained remarkably calm. "You walked into me." The words were not aggressive or challenging. They were simply the truth. The smile instantly disappeared from Chen Wei's face. Truth was a dangerous weapon against arrogant men, especially when spoken openly in front of others. "What did you say?" he demanded. "You walked into me," she repeated steadily. The market became even quieter. One of Chen Wei's own students looked visibly nervous. Everyone present understood the gravity of the moment. This elderly woman was not afraid of him, and Chen Wei was not used to that at all. For years, people had obeyed his every whim. For years, they had apologized even when he was clearly in the wrong. For years, fear had protected his fragile ego like an invisible shield. Now, a 70-year-old woman had accidentally challenged that shield. His reaction was swift and vicious. Chen Wei stepped forward and delivered a powerful kick to her thermos. The metal container flew through the air in a dramatic arc before smashing violently into a nearby wooden stall. The loud crash echoed through the silent market. Several people gasped in shock. Madame Li stared at the broken remains without moving. For a brief moment, her expression held more profound disappointment than anger, as though the universe had simply confirmed something painful she had long suspected about the world. "You should be ashamed of yourself," she said quietly, her voice carrying unexpected weight. The words landed harder than any physical punch ever could. Chen Wei's eyes narrowed into dangerous slits. No one had ever dared speak to him like that. No one. He opened his mouth to unleash a torrent of threats, but at that precise moment, a calm, steady voice interrupted him from the side. "That's enough." The words weren't loud or shouted, yet somehow they reached every corner of the market. Conversations stopped instantly. Heads turned. The entire scene froze in anticipation. Near the fish stall, surrounded by piles of ice and fresh silver catch, stood a man dressed in simple, dark clothes. There was nothing flashy or attention-seeking about his appearance. No expensive suit, no bodyguards, no dramatic entrance. Yet every single eye in the market immediately found him, because genuine confidence has a presence that needs no announcement. Bruce Lee stepped forward, calm, relaxed, and completely unhurried, like a man simply enjoying an evening walk, not someone walking deliberately toward danger. The crowd recognized him almost instantly. Whispers rippled through the market like an electric current. "Bruce Lee! It's Bruce Lee! What is he doing here?" Some faces filled with excitement and hope. Others paled with terror. Everyone knew precisely what Chen Wei was capable of when challenged. Bruce ignored the growing whispers. He ignored Chen Wei's glare. He ignored the thick tension hanging in the humid air. Instead, he quietly bent down and began picking up Madame Li's scattered vegetables one by one, carefully, respectfully, almost reverently. He retrieved the damaged thermos, placed everything back into her bag with gentle hands, and offered it to her. "Are you all right?" he asked softly, his voice carrying genuine concern. Madame Li looked at him. For the first time since the collision, a warm smile touched her lips. "Yes." "Good." Bruce nodded with quiet satisfaction. Only then did he slowly turn toward Chen Wei. The entire market held its breath. Two completely different worlds had just collided in the heart of Kowloon. Chen Wei projected raw, intimidating power. Bruce radiated peaceful, unshakable control. Yet in that charged moment, everyone present felt the invisible balance of power beginning to shift dramatically. Chen Wei noticed it too, and he hated it with every fiber of his being. The humid July air in Kowloon felt heavier than usual that evening, thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth, sizzling street food, and unspoken tension. Neon lights reflected in the shallow puddles like fractured jewels, casting long, dancing shadows across the crowded market lanes. What had begun as an ordinary collision between strangers was rapidly transforming into something far more dangerous, a public reckoning that would send ripples through the entire district. Madame Li stood steady despite her age, her small frame radiating a quiet dignity that refused to crumble. Her silver hair, still neatly tied, caught the flickering light as she faced the man who had just shattered her thermos without remorse. The broken metal container lay in pieces, a silent witness to Chen Wei's casual cruelty. Around them, the market had fallen into an unnatural hush. Vendors paused mid-sale, customers froze with bags in hand, and children peeked from behind their parents' legs. No one dared breathe too loudly. They all knew Chen Wei's reputation for turning minor incidents into spectacles of dominance. Chen Wei towered over the elderly woman, his chest heaving with barely contained rage. His white fighting tape gleamed under the lights, a symbol of the violence he was always ready to unleash. The presence of so many watchful eyes only fueled his ego. This wasn't just an accident anymore, it was theater, and he intended to be the star. His laugh cut through the silence like a blade, cold and mocking. "Old woman," he boomed, ensuring every stall could hear. "Learn to watch where you're stepping before you bump into your betters." A few onlookers shifted uncomfortably, eyes fixed on the ground. Others turned away, pretending to examine nearby goods. Involvement meant risk, and in Chen Wei's territory, risk was rarely worth it. But Madame Li did not flinch. Her voice remained calm, clear, and unwavering. "You were the one who walked into me." The statement was simple truth, delivered without anger or fear. It landed like a quiet thunderclap. Chen Wei's smirk vanished instantly. In his world, no one corrected him, especially not in public, and certainly not a frail elder. His eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. "What did you just say to me?" The threat in his tone was unmistakable. One of his students, standing just behind him, shifted nervously, sensing the storm about to break. The crowd felt it too. This wasn't going to end with words. Madame Li met his gaze steadily. "You walked into me," she repeated, her disappointment more cutting than any accusation. For a fleeting moment, her expression revealed something deeper than personal grievance, a profound sadness for a young man who had wasted his talent on cruelty. She had lived through wars, migrations, and countless hardships in this very city. She knew real strength when she saw it, And this was not it. Chen Wei stepped forward aggressively, raising his hand. The market tensed, ready for the worst. Then, slicing through the charged atmosphere like a cool breeze, a firm yet composed voice rang out. "That's enough!" The words carried effortlessly across the stalls. Heads turned in unison. The air itself seemed to pause. Near a fish stall piled high with fresh silver catches and melting ice, a man in simple, dark clothing emerged from the crowd. There was no fanfare, no dramatic gesture, only quiet authority. Bruce Lee moved with the relaxed grace of someone completely at ease, as if taking a peaceful evening stroll rather than stepping into the heart of conflict. His presence filled the space without effort. Confidence like his needed no introduction. Whispers erupted instantly, spreading like wildfire through the market. "Bruce Lee, it's really him! What is he doing here?" Excitement flickered on some faces, while pure dread appeared on others. Everyone knew Chen Wei's capacity for brutality, and now the district's most respected martial artist had inserted himself into the drama. Bruce paid no attention to the murmurs or the rising tension. He walked straight past Chen Wei as if the bully didn't exist, and knelt beside Madame Li's scattered belongings. With deliberate care and profound respect, he began collecting the vegetables one by one, wiping dirt from leaves, gathering oranges that had rolled into corners. He retrieved the damaged thermos, dusted it off, and carefully placed everything back into her cloth bag. Only when the task was complete did he hand it back to her with both hands, a gesture of deep courtesy. "Are you all right, madam?" he asked, gently, his voice warm and sincere. Madame Li looked into his eyes. For the first time since the collision, a genuine smile softened her weathered face. "Yes, I am now. Thank you." Bruce nodded once, satisfied. Only then did he turn to face Chen Wei. The entire market seemed to hold its collective breath. Two vastly different worlds stood inches apart, raw aggression versus centered mastery. Chen Wei projected brute force and simmering rage. Bruce emanated calm control and unshakable inner strength. In that electric moment, everyone watching felt the invisible scales of power tipping dramatically. Chen Wei's jaw tightened. "Do you have a problem here, stranger?" he growled, stepping closer to intimidate. Bruce offered a polite, almost disarming smile. "No, no problem at all." The unexpected answer caught everyone off guard. Chen Wei blinked in confusion. "Then what do you think you're doing?" Bruce's voice remained steady and clear, carrying through the silent crowd. "I simply don't enjoy watching anyone bully an innocent old woman. That's not strength. That's weakness, hiding behind muscle." Several people in the crowd looked away, hiding their reactions. Even hearing someone openly call out Chen Wei felt shocking, almost revolutionary. No one had dared speak to the feared fighter this way before. Chen Wei took another threatening step forward. "I suggest you mind your own business before you regret it." Bruce nodded thoughtfully, as if genuinely considering the advice. "Normally, I would, but when someone starts hurting innocent people in public, it stops being one person's business. It becomes everyone's responsibility." A heavy, dangerous silence descended. The air crackled with anticipation. Chen Wei's pride screamed for violence. His reputation demanded he crush this challenger immediately. His students watched wide-eyed. The entire market, and seemingly the whole district, hung on every word. For the first time in years, someone stood before Chen Wei completely unafraid. "You know who I am?" Chen Wei snarled, puffing out his chest. "You must know I can knock any man unconscious with a single strike." Nervous nods rippled through parts of the crowd. They had seen him do it before. Bruce looked at him quietly for a long moment, then a small, knowing smile touched his lips. A dangerous smile that belonged to a man who already understood something his opponent never would. "One strike?" Bruce asked calmly. "One strike," Chen Wei repeated, confidence surging back. Bruce nodded slowly. "Maybe." The simple word confused the entire gathering. Then he continued, his eyes locking onto Chen Wei's with laser focus. "But if you're truly as powerful as you claim, why don't we settle this properly? In the ring, tomorrow night, at Master Wong's fighting hall, in front of everyone, no excuses, no innocent people caught in the middle." A murmur of disbelief swept through the market like a wave. Bruce Lee had just publicly challenged the most feared man in the district, directly, confidently, without hesitation. Chen Wei stared, momentarily stunned, before throwing his head back in loud, theatrical laughter. It was the laugh of a man who believed victory was already guaranteed. "Fine," he thundered, pointing directly at Bruce. "Tomorrow night. But when I win, you will become my servant for an entire year." Gasps erupted all around. Even some of Bruce's quiet supporters looked concerned. The condition was deliberately humiliating, perfectly crafted to match Chen Wei's cruel nature. The crowd waited, hearts pounding, for Bruce's response. It came without delay. "I accept." The laughter died in Chen Wei's throat. Something about Bruce's absolute calm and unshakable confidence unsettled him deeply. It felt wrong, almost impossible. Then Bruce added one final condition, his voice cutting through the tension once more. "And if I win, you will apologize to this lady." He gestured respectfully toward Madame Li. "And to everyone else you've mistreated in this district." Chen Wei blinked, caught completely off guard. Of all possible demands, money, fame, control of a dojo, Bruce wanted only an apology? For the first time that evening, genuine hesitation flashed across Chen Wei's face, lasting only a second, but long enough for Bruce and the crowd to notice. Finally, he forced a nod. "Fine. Tomorrow night." The deal was sealed. The challenge accepted. As Bruce turned and walked away with the same unhurried grace, the market slowly came back to life. Excited whispers filled the air. Some predicted a stunning victory for Bruce. Others feared Chen Wei would destroy him completely. No one knew what tomorrow would bring. But one truth united them all. For the first time in years, the most feared man in Kowloon had been openly challenged. Tomorrow night, an entire community would gather to witness whether fear was truly unbeatable, or whether it had finally met its match. The next evening, Kowloon pulsed with an electric undercurrent that no one could quite explain. The streets looked the same, cluttered with steaming food carts, hanging laundry, and the endless flow of tired workers. But beneath the familiar rhythm, anticipation crackled like hidden lightning. By midday, rumors of the showdown had escaped the district and spread like wildfire through factories, schools, and crowded ferry terminals. Bruce Lee versus Chen Wei. Not just a fight, but a clash between two philosophies. The tyranny of fear against the quiet power of true mastery. Workers debated it over hurried lunches. Shopkeepers argued outcomes with customers while wrapping purchases. Even those who knew nothing of martial arts felt drawn to the drama unfolding in their midst. Inside Chen Wei's dimly lit dojo, the atmosphere was thick with incense, sweat, and overconfident boasts. His loyal students circled him like devoted courtiers around a throne, feeding his ego with every word. "Master, you'll crush him in seconds," one declared. "Bruce Lee doesn't understand the storm he's facing," another added. Each compliment was fuel on the fire. Chen Wei paced the wooden floor, his broad shoulders rolling as he visualized total domination. He replayed his past victories in his mind. The shattered opponents, the cheering crowds, the way fear had always bent others to his will. Yet beneath the bravado, a tiny seed of doubt had taken root after the market confrontation. Bruce's calm gaze and unshakable confidence had unsettled something deep inside him. He shoved the feeling away violently, pounding the heavy bag until his knuckles burned. Victory wasn't a question anymore. The only mystery was how badly he would humiliate his challenger. As twilight deepened, spectators began pouring into the dojo. The hall filled rapidly. People crammed shoulder to shoulder along the walls, spilling onto balconies and peering through open windows. The air grew hot and heavy with the scent of oiled wood, nervous sweat, and murmured conversations. More arrived every minute, drawn by the promise of witnessing history. Chen Wei stood at the center of the ring, arms folded across his powerful chest, soaking in the attention like a drug. This was his kingdom, his arena. Tonight would remind everyone why no one dared challenge him. Then the door swung open. The noisy chatter dropped to a stunned silence. Bruce Lee entered without fanfare. No entourage, no dramatic music, no announcement. He walked in wearing simple black training pants and a plain sleeveless shirt that revealed his compact, powerfully coiled physique. Yet his presence filled the entire hall. People looked at him not with fear, but with quiet admiration and hope. He nodded respectfully to several elderly spectators, offered a warm smile to a group of wide-eyed children pressed against the wall, and exchanged a knowing glance with Madame Li, who sat near the front. Only after acknowledging her did he step into the ring. Chen Wei forced a loud, mocking laugh to reclaim the crowd's focus. "You actually showed up," he sneered. Bruce met his gaze evenly. "I said I would." The simplicity of the reply irritated Chen Wei more than any insult could. Everything about Bruce grated on him. His effortless calm, his complete lack of fear, the way he carried himself like a man entering a conversation rather than a war. Most opponents arrived already defeated in their minds. Bruce entered as if the outcome were merely a detail to be settled. Master Wong, the respected elderly referee, stepped between them. His lined face reflected decades of wisdom earned in the fighting arts. "This is a martial arts contest," he reminded both men firmly. "No attacks after I call stop, no dirty tricks, no excuses." Both fighters nodded. The crowd fell into absolute silence, every eye locked on the ring. Bruce rolled his shoulders once, loosening up. Chen Wei cracked his neck with a sharp sound. The tension in the hall became almost unbearable, thick enough to taste. Master Wong stepped back. "Begin!" The crowd erupted as Chen Wei exploded forward instantly, exactly as expected, pure aggression with no patience or strategy. A powerful punch sliced toward Bruce's head. Spectators gasped at the speed, but Bruce wasn't there. He slipped aside with fluid grace, the blow cutting through empty air. Surprise rippled through the audience. Chen Wei spun and attacked again. Another miss. Bruce moved like flowing water, smooth, relaxed, impossible to pin down. The command, "Begin," unleashed chaos inside Master Wong's packed fighting hall. The crowd's roar shook the wooden beams as Chen Wei exploded forward like a caged beast finally set free. No strategy, no patience, only raw, explosive aggression. A thunderous punch whistled toward Bruce Lee's face, fast enough to make spectators gasp and instinctively flinch. The strike carried years of tournament dominance behind it, the kind of blow that had ended fights in seconds. But Bruce wasn't there. He slipped aside with effortless, liquid grace, the punch slicing through empty air. A ripple of surprise swept through the audience. Chen Wei recovered instantly, spinning with another powerful combination, punches, elbows, a low, sweeping kick. Each attack missed by inches. Bruce moved like flowing water, never hurried, never panicked, always one step ahead. His footwork was poetry in motion, precise, economical, almost dance-like under the harsh dojo lights. The spectators exchanged stunned glances. Chen Wei was one of the strongest fighters they had ever seen. A man who had broken bodies and spirits alike. Yet he couldn't even touch Bruce. A third attack came, then a fourth, growing wilder with frustration. Every strike met only air. Bruce's expression remained calm, almost serene, as if he were training rather than fighting for his freedom. For the first time that night, doubt crept into the hall like smoke. Chen Wei felt it immediately, and it ignited his fury. He launched a vicious high kick meant to shatter bone. Bruce stepped inside the arc at the last possible moment. The kick whistled harmlessly past. In the same fluid motion, Bruce tapped him lightly on the shoulder. Not hard, not damaging, just enough to humiliate. A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the crowd. Chen Wei froze. The laughter hurt far more than any punch could. His face darkened with rage. "Relax," Bruce said calmly, his voice carrying clearly across the ring. The friendly tone somehow made it worse. Roaring with anger, Chen Wei charged again, this time throwing everything into complex combinations, punches blending into kicks, elbows, and feints. The audience watched in disbelief. Bruce avoided every single strike. It was as if he could read Chen Wei's thoughts before they became movement. The confidence that had filled the dojo earlier began evaporating. People slowly realized something disturbing. Bruce wasn't even struggling. He was playing with his opponent, demonstrating the vast gulf between true skill and mere intimidation. Chen Wei finally managed to brush Bruce's shirt with a grazing punch. The crowd cheered desperately, but Bruce answered immediately. A quick, precise jab touched Chen Wei's forehead, light, controlled, yet impossible to ignore. The first clean strike belonged to Bruce. The room exploded with reactions. Chen Wei backed away, breathing harder, his mind racing. "You don't need to do this," Bruce said, lowering his hand slightly. The words shocked everyone, including Chen Wei. "What?" Chen Wei snarled. "You can still stop," Bruce continued, his voice steady and compassionate. He gestured toward the silent crowd. "They don't hate you." Then toward Madame Li. "She doesn't hate you." Finally, pointing at Chen Wei himself. "You've spent years proving how strong you are. Now, prove what kind of man you are." The hall fell into stunned silence. No one expected philosophy in the middle of a fight. Chen Wei laughed bitterly, but the sound rang hollow. "You think you're teaching me a lesson?" Bruce didn't reply. The silence itself became the answer. Something inside Chen Wei snapped. Pride, ego, and years of built-up fear of exposure erupted. He charged with desperate, wild violence, a final, all-or-nothing assault. But Bruce saw the truth clearly. Chen Wei was no longer fighting him. He was battling his own terror. The terror of losing, of being exposed, of discovering that power built on fear was hollow. Bruce sidestepped gracefully. A sharp, precise body shot landed. Chen Wei staggered. Another strike followed, then another. Controlled, educational, never cruel. Each counter stripped away another layer of Chen Wei's carefully constructed reputation. The audience witnessed something profound. A bully struggling, a tyrant looking suddenly vulnerable, a man realizing intimidation had no power against someone who refused to be intimidated. Chen Wei's breathing grew ragged. Sweat poured down his face. His movements slowed. His legendary confidence crumbled before their eyes. Bruce remained fresh, focused, and utterly composed. The difference was now impossible to ignore. Then Bruce spoke one last time. "Listen to me. You still have a choice." Chen Wei glared, fists clenched. "They wanted to respect you," Bruce said, pointing to the crowd. "You made them fear you instead." He stepped closer. Strength isn't forcing people to lower their heads. Strength is making them proud to stand beside you. The silence in the dojo was overwhelming. Even Chen Wei's own students looked shaken. Deep down, they knew Bruce spoke the truth. For years, they had mistaken fear for respect. Now the illusion was shattering. Chen Wei stood motionless for a heartbeat, chest heaving. Then, with a primal roar, he launched his final desperate attack, a massive, powerful combination driven by everything he had left. But Bruce flowed around it like wind through trees. In a blur of perfect timing and precision, he delivered a lightning-fast sequence of strikes to the body and head. Controlled, devastating in their clarity. Chen Wei's legs buckled. He crashed onto the canvas with a heavy thud. The dojo fell into a stunned hush as Chen Wei lay on the canvas, chest heaving, staring at the wooden beams above. The count from Master Wang echoed through the hall like a death knell for the old order. 1, 2, 3. Chen Wei tried to rise, his powerful arms shaking with exhaustion and disbelief. By 7, the truth had settled deep in his bones. There would be no miraculous recovery, no excuses, only the harsh light of reality. 10. The hall exploded in a thunderous wave of cheers, applause, and emotional release. People jumped to their feet. Some shouted Bruce Lee's name until their voices cracked. Others wiped tears from their eyes, not for the victory itself, but for the long-awaited sense of justice that had finally arrived in their community. For years, Chen Wei had ruled through fear. Tonight, that reign ended not with a brutal beating, but with a masterclass in controlled excellence. Bruce Lee did not celebrate. He stood quietly in the center of the ring, breathing steady, expression calm and respectful. There was no gloating, no raised fists, no triumphant pose. Instead, he walked over to his fallen opponent and extended a hand. The entire hall fell silent again, watching with bated breath. Chen Wei stared at the offered hand for several long seconds. His pride waged one final desperate battle inside him. Then, slowly, almost painfully, he reached up and grasped it. Bruce pulled him to his feet with genuine care. The two men stood face to face, one exhausted and broken, the other composed and steady. "The fight is over," Bruce said quietly. "You lost tonight, but you don't have to lose yourself." The words struck deeper than any strike in the ring. Chen Wei lowered his head, breathing heavily. For the first time in years, the feared bully looked truly vulnerable. Then, In a moment no one would ever forget, he turned toward Madame Lee. The elderly woman sat quietly near the front row, her eyes wise and patient. Chen Wei walked across the ring, the crowd parting silently. When he reached her, he stopped and bowed deeply. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I was disrespectful. I was wrong." Madame Lee studied him for a long moment before offering a gentle, understanding smile. "I accept your apology." A wave of emotion swept through the spectators. Many felt their eyes sting. The man who had once ruled by terror was publicly humbling himself. Chen Wei then turned to face the entire crowd. The shopkeepers, laborers, students, and families he had intimidated for years. He took a deep breath and bowed again, lower this time, a gesture of sincere remorse. "I confused fear with respect," he announced, his voice echoing through the silent hall. "I thought strength gave me the right to look down on others. I was wrong." For several seconds, the dojo remained completely quiet. Then, slowly at first, applause began to build. Soon it swelled into a powerful roar of approval, not for his fighting skill, but for the courage it took to admit his failings in front of everyone. Bruce stepped forward and placed a hand on Chen Wei's shoulder. "Now," he said softly, "your real training begins. Learning how to be strong without making others weak." That single sentence stayed with Chen Wei for the rest of his life. Years later, the story of that night continued to live on in Kowloon's tea houses, training halls, and bustling markets. People didn't remember it primarily for the punches or the knockout. They remembered it for what happened afterward. The transformation, the apology, the quiet birth of hope. Bruce Lee had done more than win a fight. He had defeated fear itself and shown an entire community that true strength lies not in crushing others, but in lifting them up. In the neon glow of Kowloon's streets, a new chapter had quietly begun. One where respect was earned, not demanded, and courage proved stronger than any storm.